All right, and good evening. It is Monday evening, the 12th of December, 2022, just coming up past 9 p.m. I'm Texas Storm Chasers David Reimer in the midst of what's going to likely be a long 18 hours in the thunderstorm department. We've already begun and have had a couple tornado warnings in the far northern Texas panhandle over the last 1 hour. And a line of storms is quickly developing along Interstate 27 in West Texas, all of which we'll talk about. We'll talk about the timing, the overall risks for the next 18 hours, and just who may end up with some rowdy thunderstorms and, of course, winds. So, first things first, let's pop over to the severe weather outlook from the Storm Prediction Center. This is for the remainder of tonight into the day Tuesday. We've got a level 2 risk, essentially, from where the storms are firing right now. Perryton, Amarillo, down I-27 to Lubbock and east. I realize this graphic doesn't necessarily show that, but I moved it myself because that's where the storms are right now. And as those storms continue to fire up over the next couple of hours in West Texas and the Texas Panhandle, the strongest may produce damaging straight-line winds over 70 miles per hour, in addition to the threat for brief spin-up tornadoes. Now, that being said, just because I say brief spin-up tornadoes doesn't necessarily mean they aren't meant to be taken seriously. In this context, we're going to likely be dealing with a mostly linear mode, a squall line. In these tornadoes that develop on the leading edge of the squall line can do so very quickly, hence the term spin up. They don't normally last too long, but at the same time, with storms moving at 60 to 65 miles an hour, have a tornado down for, say, 5 minutes, that's still going to cover several miles. So when warnings are issued, you need to take them seriously since these storms will be moving very quickly. Those initial storms developing in West Texas and the Panhandle right now will move into Oklahoma, portions of northwest Texas and the Big Country over the next few hours. And then as we head into tomorrow, line of storms will approach Interstate 35. I'll show you a video graphic here in a minute that'll better illustrate that and visualize the timing aspects for everyone. And as we continue into tomorrow morning, and then even into the early afternoon hours Tuesday, the threat for severe weather will continue with that squall line. Damaging winds, brief tornadoes, maybe some quarter-size hail. And as you can see, that risk will continue all the way into the Arklatex, Northeast Texas, East Texas, the Piney Woods of East Texas, and the Golden Triangle. We do note that enhancement, the level 3 risk, that does include the Piney Woods of East Texas, Lufkin, Nacogdoches, up to Marshall in East Texas, and that is where we may have an enhancement to the tornado threat tomorrow. That's where that medium tornado risk is for, and that's where we have indications we may be dealing with some discrete storms tomorrow afternoon. And again, just like we dealt with on November 4th of last month, discrete storms pose a whole different threat for tornadoes, and those could be the longer-lived, stronger variety versus most of these tornadoes we may be dealing with tonight with the squall line that would tend to be brief and short-lived and on the weaker side. So let's pop over real quick and just show you what's going on right now. This is the radar over the last hour. You can see we've had a couple tornado warnings in the northeastern Texas Panhandle, generally north of Perryton. Those have quickly moved into the eastern Oklahoma Panhandle as they race northeast at about 65 miles an hour. But you can see over the last 20 minutes, a line of storms unzipping along a cold front across West Texas. Some of those storms are likely to become severe over the next 30 to 60 minutes, the potential for some pocket change size hail, winds over 60 miles an hour. And again, we'll be watching for indications of brief spin-up tornadoes. Now, you can see those cells up in the northeast Texas Panhandle have generally been cellular versus the line that's developing west of Lubbock and I-27, that's linear or line of storms, comparatively lower tornado threat, but still a threat for brief tornadoes versus discrete storms, which pose all sorts of problems. So let's pop on over to the high-res rapid refresh model. And again, this is just going to give us a timeline for tonight into tomorrow morning. You can see line of storms, once it gets going, it's going to keep going all the way until it gets into Arkansas and Louisiana tomorrow afternoon. And that's the general expectation. Now, not all of the storms in the squall line are going to be severe. We're not going to be dealing with tornado warnings for the next 18 hours. We're not going to be dealing with a widespread severe weather outbreak, I don't believe. But we could still have to deal with some damaging straight-line winds, potential for brief tornadoes, and the possibility we could have to deal with some pocket change size hail. You can see this model generally brings the squall line into the DFW Metroplex around, I'm going to say between about 6 and 8 a.m. right now, but that timing may change maybe later by an hour, maybe slower by an hour. We'll just have to wait and see. But one thing I want to point out is once the line of storms passes your location, and it won't take them long to pass through because they're going to be moving quickly to the east, the severe weather threat will end. You'll see off this, skies are going to clear probably an hour after it storms at your location. The threat for some supercellular storms tomorrow afternoon in East Texas, you can kind of see that here with this animation where the squall line kind of breaks up and we start dealing with more of a cellular mode of storms. That is where we could be dealing with a higher threat for tornadoes, specifically the longer-lived, stronger variety that give us great concern. But again, as this line of storms moves east overnight in northwest Texas, the Big Country, into North Texas and Texoma, strongest storms could produce brief spin-up tornadoes. Again, they spin up pretty quick, but they usually don't last very long. Damaging straight-line winds out of the strongest storms, over 70 miles an hour. Not all storms are going to be producing winds that high. And we could see some pocket change size hail, dimes, pennies, maybe up to quarter-size hail. We're not really expecting too much in the way of big hail tonight. It's a secondary concern to the threat for some damaging winds and a couple of spin-up tornadoes. So we'll just keep an eye on things here. That's what happens when you get strong cold fronts in December when it's been, relatively warm. So if it makes you feel better, this will probably be our last severe weather episode we have to deal with for a while. If you haven't heard, Christmas is looking rather chilly. And as we head into next weekend, and leading up to Christmas, we'll probably be dealing with some sort of weather mischief, but I don't think it's going to be severe weather, at least in the mindset of hailstones and tornadoes. So we'll just have to wait and see, but I don't think we're going to be dealing with record highs this Christmas, which will be a nice change after the last couple of years. So again, we're going to be keeping an eye on things here at the Texas Storm Chasers. We've got folks out in the northeastern Texas Panhandle now chasing those storms. They may make the long haul into East Texas for tomorrow afternoon. We'll have to wait and see how that works out. And once we start dealing with some additional severe weather, we will begin our severe weather coverage tonight. Again, if we have tornado warnings, we'll be here. If we have dangerous severe storms, we'll be here. So that'll be overnight into tomorrow. You can keep an eye on the sky with the Texas Storm Chasers Interactive Weather Radar on our website, texasstormchasers.com/radar, or just download the free Texas Storm Chasers mobile app. Both will have a bit of an upgrade coming out later this month or in early January that we're excited about. So we'll be here. You can keep an eye on the sky with our radar. Make sure you have a way to receive weather warnings overnight and into tomorrow as this line of storms moves east across the state. But we'll see cooler weather arrive behind it. Y'all have a good night. God bless. We'll be here if you need us.